just here to live a life of better days. Welcome everyone to Worthy of Wonderful. My name is BukekaStyle, and this is another episode of a program that I am so excited to bring to you. This is Worthy of Wonderful, where we talk about and share information about how our worth is so important to not only our self-experience, but to help others with their sense of experience in the world as well. So today, my special guest is Ivy.i. And this woman is amazing. She is a coach. She is an architect. And most importantly, she has a heart of gold who is wanting to help women around the world touch into their self-worth through the aspect of spaces and their home and their environment, which is one thing that is right on my list of important topics and important ways that we need to be in the world, to be comfortable in our spaces. So everyone, let me introduce to you Ivy.i. Ivy.i, how are you this morning?
I'm fine, thanks. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now tell me a little bit about how you got started and what is it that really brought this to light for you, brought your program into light for you?
Okay. I started as an architect and back then, doing all the residential buildings and drawing mass buildings. Um, it was a beautiful journey, yes, being exposed to a lot of people, but having that sense of meaning, why am I doing this? It started lacking. And then in the midst of that, I had a burnout in the midst of that and depression. So that led me to the journey of resetting myself and seeking for a purpose. Why was I in that industry? So when I was searching, and then in that journey of me healing myself, I ended up with the sense of purpose. Why was I doing that? That is reimagining my space within self and the habitat where I live in, because that's where everything starts, from where the spaces that we're living in. So that led me to house versus home journey.
Wow. As you speak about that, it reminds me of the fact that when you wake up in the morning, the first thing that you see is where you are. And the feeling that you get when you open your eyes and look at your environment, I would imagine is really important. And we don't probably realize how that affects our mood, how that affects the rest of our day, how we're internalizing all of that.
Exactly. That is the essence of the whole project that that we're doing, because everything starts from within the house. No matter whatever is going out there, we're gonna bring those energy in. So depending the way that we process our mindset or we reset our mindset, knowing that whatever happens outdoor, we have to leave it outdoor and come in with a clear head in our space, knowing that this is our safe haven. So once we can't address that and we're bringing in all those emotions indoors, it's gonna bound to or implode or explode. So that is the beginning of our.
I would imagine that with the people that you work with, it is a question that they probably have never delved into. They probably have not really evaluated that. Would you say that that's true?
That is very true, because a lot of professionals, for example, when they are diagnosing their patients, sometimes patients are misdiagnosed because their stories are not harvested in a proper manner to extract what they're not saying. So it is necessary to be able to showcase those stories, handle it with care, and not only from this place of professionalism. Yes, you can be a therapist, a psychotherapist, or whatever denomination that you're in.
Right.
We have to listen to the patients, what they're actually not saying and what they are saying, to make it sense. Because sometimes you can impose your own diagnosis, and they can be misdiagnosed because as professionals, we're not listening enough. So that is my journey that I want to be able to showcase that for professionals like ourselves.
Listening. We gain so much information if we just slow down, turn off our internal mind chatter, and listen to other people, because their stories are important, not only to them, but to the people that are in their world and their sphere. So when we know more about where they're coming from, when we meet them where they are, it enriches. Well, it makes it taps into their worth. They know that they're being valued in that moment when you're actively listening to them. So I appreciate you making that point. Tell me a little bit about how you have mentored other people, and tell me a little bit about who has mentored you.
I'm mentored by a lot of people. I like listening a lot. I like being in the midst of women and men that have been through a lot. You learn a lot from them. You know, those stories, those 5-10 minute story that you listen to is very essential in going forward. So I have maybe 5 people that I check in on a regular basis. They are my mentors, and they are in the denomination of psychologists, therapists, coaches, you know, and the spiritual healing as well, maybe from the church as well. So I have those, and it's the five people, and they all do double things. So I don't need more than that. And they did help me a lot in my journey, because it's essential to have those kind of people when we're as professionals. Yes, we know what we know, but we know the other people as well to has more what we know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essential. Yeah, so it did help a lot.
And mentors are there to push you. They're not necessarily there to be your buddy. you know they're there to help you stretch and to grow. And so sometimes we have to really make sure that we're going to take that in that way, and that we're ready to move into that next step of the journey. And sometimes we got to be pushed a little bit.
Yes, indeed. And
Yeah.
sometimes we are put into places that we don't want to go,
Right.
but it's essential for us to break through those barriers to cross over to where we are destined to be.
I would agree. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about your program, how you are helping women around the world create those spaces and understand the significance of those spaces, and how you help them through the trauma of that. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and bring up some of your slides.
Yes, there is a course called Remapping Your Life and Regaining Control. It's a survivor's pathway to know how to re-engineer your life within your space where you live in. So the course is designed for survivors of trauma, or people that are going through trauma, how they can be able to harvest those emotions and leverage those emotions in going forward, and come with congruence with with what they have happened to them in that particular moment and time and space, harvesting it and moving forward. So I use a sense of art therapy. I would call it art therapy. So we used art therapy to be able to elicit those emotions from people. I call it geography of emotions, because I'm a part of a group called the Geographer of Emotions. They have that for 5 years now. You can use that, it's like a tool. So you can use to solve issues, and thinking about growth as well, and as well how to harvest those emotions that not everybody knows how to manage. So it's necessary to do that. This course is designed for women or men, but I work mainly with women from their 30s transiting into their 40s, who have been through issues, or they have lost somebody, to illness or being incarcerated or going through divorce or had deserted or even death, somebody that lost somebody. So helping them to be able to come with congruence with that situation that they're being through or they're being through, and as well when they go home to where they live, that's where all that emotions is going to boil off, because something is still being outdoors dealing with those things. But when you come in, that's when everything is settled. So helping them to be able to know how to manage those emotions within those four walls and not secluding themselves in a space. Because when you have some issues or traumas, or you have been through domestic violence, or you have been through a terrifying effect, or maybe even rape cases, you tend to seclude yourself in a space. But helping them to be able to navigate those spaces inside the four walls, utilizing that space properly and giving time for each space is necessary in the way healing going forward. So
Wow.
this is the kind of
That's
things that we do.
that's incredible. I love how you brought your knowledge and skill and expertise of architecture into a place where women and men, but women can heal. Let me go to this next slide, and you're talking about the emotional geography. Can you tell a little bit more about that?
Emotional geography is a tool that you can be able to harvest. You harvest those emotions. Um, you can be able to utilize it to see your strengths and weaknesses and solve problems, goal setting. It depends the way you see it. Yeah, I've been there for 5 years. People utilize this as well in the corporate world. I'm utilizing it in the space in terms of architecture, in people knowing how to manage their emotions inside the four walls. It is necessary, even dealing, like for example, in my own part as a coach, helping people, knowing how to manage, elicit those emotions, manage those emotions, map it, and in the way going forward. Because if you don't, harvest it in an environment, you wouldn't know how to re-engineer it going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So and we utilize it as art therapy. So when you see those things mapped out as a form of art, your ordeal that you have been through in your life, you map it as a form of art. And when you look at it and revisit it, even if you have to hang it on your wall as a vision board, for example, because
Mm-hmm.
that is one of the exercises that I do, you begin to see your journey as a strength that you leverage in that journey and as an empowerment going forward. And then, yes, it is quite a tool going forward because you see that you are a warrior in whatever you have been through.
Right. Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, let me take a look at this one because this out of the many that you shared with me, I just love it. It's just a beautiful space that really engages. The lines, the sight lines and everything are so beautiful. What does this represent for you?
Okay, it represents my line of work because I do mass building, so it's BIM, I utilize BIM. We use the 3D visualizing for the clients to see the spaces that they imagine and for them to see it in a timely manner and how it's gonna look like. But this is more close to home because it's the apartment that I used to live. Where I lived my ordeal because something is you see in an apartment that I will live with my children. Um, and then you see it is a beautiful home. You don't see anything wrong with it. You see everything that you desire to have, but you don't know the stories that happens within those four walls and how intense it is. And sometimes the stories are not written properly or said properly, outdoors. So I see it as a form of strength when I look at it. It's like my vision board where I started.
Wow, that's beautiful. I mean, when you just look at the dining room table and imagine the conversations of celebration and the conversations of tears, when you look at the the shower. I'm going to tell a personal story. When years ago, when I was in a lot of pain, I just remember being in the shower and just crying, and sometimes just even sliding down the wall, because I just didn't know where I was going to go or how the problem was going to be fixed. I was really depressed. But when I see this picture, it kind of reminds me that not only was that a place of release for me, but it was also a place of cleansing, obviously, not just externally, but internally, just letting that water fall upon me to help release some of the anxiety, stress, and pain that I was in. So when I saw this slide and knowing how you're utilizing these pictures, it really came home for me in a lot of ways. So thank you for that.
I'm glad you did, because this is the kind of emotion that we're expecting to evoke in people that undergoes these courses. Because you just said what it is, the embodiment of that space, what it happens to you, how you ingested it, how you released it, and the kind of emotion that was boiling in, how you leverage it as a strength. So this is the kind of stories and feelings that we're expecting when we're going through this course, when you're talking it through, you're healing through it, through the process.
Wonderful. Then I'm just going to go to this next slide. And this obviously looks like one of the processes that you have your clients go through by actually just drawing things out. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Yes, this is one of the exercises that we do, that where they themselves, they will, draw a map, a floor plan of their home, or where they have been through that kind of events. And then they can be able to begin to put the furnitures in, and thinking about, in terms of what happened, how was the dynamics of what happened, how long they have been there, and what kind of emotions and feelings, where they were safe, where they were unsafe. So this is the kind of things, that they will be, showcasing in that particular exercises, one of the many exercises. Yeah, because by the time they're done with this course, they will actually have an emotional journey of their ordeal as one of the chapters of their book or journal, because that is the main embodiment of this course, is you having a chapter. If you are a writer, or going through an ordeal, you want to go to a court case, for example, it's important for, even a judge to see your emotional state, what you have been through, and what you can harvest from that. Showcasing it in a court case, it is extremely important for people or victims that have been through an ordeal to know their frame of mind, apart from the psychologist or the therapist that have evaluated them.
Wow, that is powerful. That is really powerful. Well, I'm going to just bring down the presentation here and get back to seeing your beautiful face. And what would you say is the most significant outcome you've seen from the work that you're doing? Have you worked with organizations, or have you worked with a group of women, or what are some of the success stories that you can talk about with your program?
Okay, I worked with a couple of victims through the pandemic. I worked with a couple of victims, so that's why I saw this case study, and I saw that there was a way. This is a tool actually going forward, and trying to engage more organizations in this, because dealing with, for example, women that have been, their children have been taken away from them, is a nice tool for them to understand the ordeal that they have been through, how it was in terms of their scenario moving forward in terms of court cases. I've dealt with teenagers that have been through rape cases. So for them to be able to know how to relieve in those places, in the apartment where those kind of issues happen to them, seeing a good way of going forward than just seeing that it was an ordeal and trying to take themselves out from those apartments, going to another apartment, because you can get away physically, but mentally you can't get away, because the emotion is still gonna carry, going to another place. So it's not the actual space, it's the events that you live in those spaces. Yeah, and then as well, I've dealt as well with victims that have been through incarceration. So where they have been incarcerated, and then the separation of their families coming back in it again in the family dynamics. It's important helping those victims from being in small spaces and knowing how to navigate the living habitat that they're within with their partners, teaching them again ways of coming back together, because it's not something that everybody thinks about, but it's important for family dynamics, knowing how to live again within those spaces together after being apart. Because going outside is a big world out there, but indoors is another world altogether. So this is the kind of scenarios of people as well, that I've dealt with, and as well people as well that are from different in terms of religions, where you can be able to. Some families, they are very extremely religious, and then they have children that are not as religious.
Yeah.
So helping those families be able to manage those emotions within those households and knowing how to, to mix the new world that they're in, so they can be able to live in the families, because it's all about family unification. That's what I love to do.
Wow, that is wonderful. Worthy of wonderful. So I'm going to just take the narrative away from it a little bit, just to get a chance to know a little bit more about you. I know that you are a world traveler. You are a global citizen. So tell the listeners, where is your favorite place in the world?
I will say Africa, because that's why I found my purpose. I lived in Europe. I was born in Europe, raised in Europe, travel around Europe, because that's where I was raised. My dad used to move around a lot, so we move around with our dad. And every country we go, we need to learn the language. So I wouldn't say that I'm from a specific country. I would say that I'm all over. Yeah. And something that stayed with me was going to Africa, because there's something about that land that once you have that encounter, you can't be the same person living. And that was my hoo-ha moment. Because it was peculiar. When I went, I was going in desperation, trying to breathe, and then I actually landed in that mother ground, the motherland, and I could manage to breathe, even though it was extreme and temperature, that it was very hot. Yeah. And I could manage to breathe. And, and the circumstances as I landed there, I broke my leg, and I went down there with my broken leg without knowing what was gonna happen. But I landed there and I was happy.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And you came back healed physically and spiritually and emotionally as well, right?
Yes, I came here physically, yes, emotionally, yeah. But I didn't have yet anything in my leg, though, because I left no casket on my leg.
Wow.
Once I came back, I had to address it after being there a week. I came back. I got my senses. I got what I needed from the motherland, and I came back. And then I said, okay, let me go to the hospital and address my leg.
Yeah, good idea. Oh, well, Ivy.i, how can people reach out to you? How can they connect with you?
Okay, they can connect with me through www.hugs consultancy. And then there's a drop down called Hugs Coaching. That's where I do all my private work. And then, because there's a two-side of business, there's the corporate side, and then there is the coaching aspect and mentorship aspect. Yeah, so they can book there through Calendly or other outlets that are there. And they come.
And of course, you're all over social media. Ivy.i Barreto, thank you so much. Remember to go reach out to Hugs Consultancy and Hugs Coaching, and allow this beautiful soul to assist you in moving through those spaces in your life in a more beautiful, peaceful, and healing way. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Worthy of Wonderful. Again, my name is Bukeka. You can also find out more information about the different episodes that we have and learn more about Ivy.i on BukekaStyle.com. Again, thank you so much. Thank you, Ivy.i. And also you can check us out on Fave Unite TV on Roku. All right, everyone have a wonderful day. Ivy.i, thank you so much. And you have a wonderful day as well.
You too. Thank you very much for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching this episode of Worthy of Wonderful. Are you looking for options when it comes to additional income streams? Then visit www.planetmarketing.com/B Blakemore. That's Planet, PLANNET, marketing.com/B Blakemore. And speaking of streams, are you looking for a streaming platform to showcase your creative content? Then visit www.faveunite, that's FAVUNITE, TV.com. That's www.faveunitetv.com. Thanks again and have a worthy of wonderful day.